one of the things that just to think through it, one of the things that I was trying to do, I don't know if I even wrote it in the sketchbook. I think I might have, but in any case, the idea was that you would gain focus, which you could use to start beats or to use superpowers every time you rolled at your max, the max of your die height. So people with lower die heights who really cared would get more focus out of it over
Right. I
time.
saw that rule, and my only concern was whether it was just one more thing to fiddle with.
Yeah,
Um,
I, I I'm like searching for some sort of. I want there to be a little tactics in the
right.
individual. So I'm kind of like searching for some multivariate thing. I don't know if that's the if I'm really doing.
Well, I
I don't
think
think
what
I'm.
you've already said has plenty already.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
mean, there's a reason to want. You can't if we're doing it the way that I'm spitballing right now. Can't do
Yeah.
anything about target number. It's either baseline or higher, or the other guy's roll or higher. Can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
Target
That
number
I'm
is
comfortable.
never going to change
Yeah.
from its operation.
Right.
But you're varying the number of dice by using powers and by other circumstantial situations, like what tactic you're using.
Mhm.
And you are using the die size that your ethic is dictating. That seems actually like a lot.
Yeah.
That seems like a lot to go on. And let's think about so if you're saying you want to kind of incentivize getting a lot of dice in there, well, I think you've got some. You're stuck with a lower die size. You're going to be rolling your D8 on me, and I'm stuck
Right.
with I'm stuck with my D6. You're going to be rolling your D10, let's say.
Right.
I'm stuck with my D6. And I'm like, all right, what tactic gives me a ton more dice? What gives me
Right.
more dice? I need some.
Yeah.
It's not that bad a thing.
Yeah.
And it's yet. Do you see what you've done with the way it's written? Is you've added another target number for another thing.
Hmm.
So the handling
Yeah.
time just rockets right there.
Hmm.
There are, of course, any number of ways to gimmick it, which is that you would make, like the sixes have red pips and the rest have black pips, and you say, however many reds come up, mark down your points.
Right.
You can gimmick it, but that's really just all it is. We're really
Yeah.
looking at it in terms of functionality and usability. And let's back up to what we're talking about. Let's stop talking in terms of incentive and start talking in terms of results. We're talking about getting focus points.
Hmm.
Couldn't you just say, get focus points equal to your highest result
Mm.
or something like that? I mean, I don't know
Yeah.
how many you want to. If they're like popcorn, then getting like 6 or 7, is a good thing. If they're not like popcorn, instead, just say, uh, I don't know. I mean, who do you want to get? The point is, both sides could get focus points, right?
Right. Well, the yeah, essentially they both get bennies. Yeah.
Yeah. So couldn't you just say, and how random do you want it? Do you want anybody ever not to get a focus point?
I think I was just being seduced by the idea of it feeling like it modeled it in my head in some satisfying way that if you were a normal person you would have more verve, you would have more of that like
Right. Okay. Right.
if you were
In that
really
case, right. In that case, um, let's keep that. Let's keep that. Right. I mean, in other words, yeah, you got the superpowers, but Hawkeye's luckier.
right.
We'll pass over the fact that Hawkeye is an awesomely superpowered character, and never mind that. Right. But I see what you mean. Let's go ahead and take Mister D6's, who's doing his best,
Right.
and we're going to say something about rolling the D6s gives you a thing.
Mm.
But let's not do something where you have to assess the roll.
Mm-hmm.
That's the tough part. Assessing the roll for it is reasonably Well, let's put it this way. How many die sizes do you have?
At present, I think it was like D4 for like civilians, then D6 through D10 for like D6 would be the standard for heroes, and then D10 would be like you have had gotten 2 levels of power up.
Right. Do you have D8s in there too?
Yeah, so
Okay.
D6, D8.
Right. So effectively, for player characters, we've got 3.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if you're rolling dice that are lower than your opponent, if you have a lower die size than your opponent, could you just get focus points? Like either arbitrarily, you just get 1, or if you wanted to, you could get it for every die that's 2 or higher, or something like that. Again, I want to avoid assessing the dice very much. Oh shit! I forgot my focus points. How many was that?
Yeah, that happened in playtests. So
yeah, that's what I'm trying to avoid. So rather than assessing that, you could basically say, if you're rolling a lower die size, take a focus point. The nice thing about that is that you can just do that without rolling yet. You can just attend to it and then move into the roll, and you don't have to go back and like think about that in the middle of trying to figure out who won.
Right.
Now I know it's really, really, really undicey, right? Oh, I have lower dice set. Okay, here I get a point. Okay, move on.
Right.
But what are the dice for? The dice are for resolution.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you're trying. You see what I mean about trying to get too much information out of the thing?
Yeah.
And it's really tempting because no matter what metric we use for these things, even if it's flipping a coin, you'd be surprised how many different things you can figure out to derive from the coin flip. And most role-playing game mechanics are more complex than a coin flip, and you could, if you're not careful, you can get 6, 7, 8 things out of comparing this roll to that roll.
Right.
Some systems try to work with that in as useful a way as possible. You may be familiar with Greg Stolze's Rain.
Yeah, one roll engine. I was actually thinking about that as you were talking.
Yeah, because you have the height and the width, right? And so that's, possible. But again, the tendency to go overboard with it and to try to derive X, Y, and Z and the other thing is really, really tempting.
Yeah. It's very tempting for me, especially. Because I think I'm seduced by some elegance that I feel like is there, but might not actually be there.
Well, there's mathematical elegance, and then there's usability elegance.
Yeah.
And we're dealing, the trouble is that we have more instruments at work here than the dice. We've got these instruments.
Right.
So, like it or not, the attention, effort, and also there's that terrible word, the flow. To go back to our discussion of hit location and what I just alluded to a minute ago, if you calculate your focus points after the dice have hit the table, that means you have to cognitively attend to focus points at the same time as you're cognitively attending to who succeeded in the roll.
Yeah.
That is... it's not just distracting because we're stupid. It's actually distracting on a much more understandable level, that you're trying to do 2 things when you should be thinking, when you're trying to think linearly through what is happening in the fiction at the moment.
What if instead of granting focus, there was some way to use what would be focus to like either, inflict statuses on your opponent or something that drove into the fiction that was about to occur, so that if you forgot, you just lost it. It wasn't something to keep track of. It was like, all right, I got a bunch of 6s, so maybe I knock him down in addition, or he beat me, but I got enough that I can complicate this somehow.
Well, yeah, you can always say if you rolled a max at all, right? If any of your dice came up at maximum value, you get a Benny. You get some kind of narrational way to twist things a bit. That's easy. And it also favors the 6s.
Right. Yes, that's true.
So there's your luck right there.
Yeah.
Maybe hey, screw the focus points. Maybe that's the way to go. And it keeps it right there focused in our action of the moment, as you say. Now, in my opinion, we are still hitting the far end of how complicated we want to make this thing.
Yeah.
But it's playtestable.
Yeah.
We'll find out whether we went over the edge in it or not.
That's kind of cool too, because I've been thinking a lot about the hit location discussion we had and how much I like the idea of having mechanics that drove into the narration, because this obviously Origin is very heavy on like, okay, you rolled, now what happens?
Right, and in this way it's actually a little frustrating. You could say, okay, well, I got some I got some high values. Before we talk about who won, how's it going my way? And that lets you know then how the result, it lets you narrate the real outcome with more information.
Right.
Something like that. Yeah.
That's what we're thinking about, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I can't predict. I mean, I'm modeling it in my head, and all I can say is, all right, got to try it.
Yeah.
Tell me about how the beat method handles our knowledge that, and how we get to the point where the Blue Phantom, streaks down in a curving arc and is able to whisk, the golden retriever puppy from, the edged death who is just about to huck the golden retriever puppy into the bay, the basket. Right. What are we talking about in terms of beats, first of all? So don't start with that happening yet. We're looking at a blank slate at the moment.
Okay. I suppose if it was a blank slate, it would start with the Edge Death taking a strive move to kill the Golden Retriever. I don't know why they would choose to do that, but they would start with the strive move. They're a villain. So strive moves are slightly different in that you don't name another character. You're just trying to do something, and so the Blue Phantom would have focus to buy in to strive to stop you. So they would buy into the beat and then take their own strive move. If they won the exchange, then the Golden Retriever puppy doesn't die. And if Edge Death wins the strive themselves, then the Golden Retriever goes off the edge and dies.
Excellent. So we roll with all of our ethics, firing a mile.
Right. Right.
Really hoping there's the hate puppies axis, but I don't think I'm going to get that. So,
and this puppy's death will serve a greater cause. I don't
know. So what happens is the Blue Phantom, using his superpower, swooping in and all. The edged death, who knows? But the point being, they roll, and here's the tricky part. What if they both get at least one maximum value? That means they each get a cool thing, right? They each get a luckiness.
Right.
Are we just back to baseline somehow?
No, I wouldn't want the lucky. I would want the luckiness to be able to influence or complicate the situation somehow, but the ultimate narrative authority goes on whoever won.
Oh, I see.
So,
okay.
Yeah, so the narrative authority for Blue Phantom, if Blue Phantom wins, even if they both got the same die height, say Blue Phantom has a higher die height, the Blue Phantom gets to narrate that the puppy is safe, and the complication can't make the puppy die.
Right, but that again, though, now it feels like window dressing.
Right. So
we were talking about a way for the complication or the luck or the thing, the focus, whatever. We were talking about it feeding into the way that it would be narrated.
Yeah, so I think that the way I would want it I would probably want to define what was possible through introducing those sorts of advantages or complications. I would imagine it would be something like, the Edge Death cannot say that the that the Blue Phantom can't save the puppy or didn't save the puppy or that the puppy dies, but could make it such that like the Edge Death struck out at him at the last moment and sent Blue Phantom spiraling down into the sea or something like that. Something that necessitates that implies greater danger later or gives an advantage in the
yeah, this is tricky stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because then we're moving away a little bit from the decisive resolutions, but maybe not. You see, what we want to avoid is capes.
I'm sorry?
What we want to avoid is capes.
Oh, okay.
Which is where you endlessly get to re-roll your d6,
Mm-hmm.
and every re-roll is another bit of narration that moves the game fiction forward, but it is an endless chatter of and then, and then, and then, and then, and then, and none of it has anything to do with like the actual escalation of events or causality, later on.
Yeah.
It's ultimately you run the other guy out of points so that your and then comes last.
Right.
But you have to sort of endlessly keep up this meaningless chatter of narration as you go.
Mm-hmm.
So I find capes an exhausting and unsatisfying design. Always have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Brilliant character creation, actual play. I don't consider to be a successful design.